What's up, Spellslingers? My name is Garion John Wells.
I'm Drew Flitton.
And I'm Cory Janibagian.
And this is UNTAP Upkeep Drink.
Beer up.
Welcome back to another episode of UNTAP Upkeep Drink. Today is another one of our Color Wheel series featuring the color black.
So this will be episode 3 of our Color Wheel series. We just finished up blue last week.
That's right, we're going in Wooburg order, just to make sure that everyone knows that's white, blue, black, red, green.
So on our color series, we've been doing the sweet thing where we actually get beers that match the color. So we were doing the white episode. We had some of the lighter beers.
White IPA.
Yeah. And then on the blue episode...
Yeah, blue labels because beers aren't usually blue.
We couldn't really find blue beer, so we got some blue cans and bottles and stuff. But the black beer is easy because we just got a bunch of awesome dark beers.
So this is my realm of expertise. I found some really nice ones that I thought you guys would enjoy. One of these beers is actually on my top 5 beers of all time. It's just one of my favorite beers. It's so drinkable, so go-to, just delicious that... One part of me is like, I want to drink that beer, but at the same time, I know that if I do, it's going to be gone in 30 seconds. So let's not do that. Cory, you brought a different one from me. Let's introduce these beers.
So the one that I grabbed for Drew is the Trois Pistoles. Pistoles?
Pistole? No, it looks French.
It looks French. It's a Canadian beer, so I assume it's French. 3 Pistols. But it's a Belgian-style dark ale, 9%. The description is an ale brewed with spices.
Very descriptive.
Very straight to the point.
Sounds really good.
I think the brewery is Unibrow. I don't know how to say that in French.
Unibrow.
Unibrow. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't speak French. Barely speak English.
But I know Drew loves dark beers, and I've never seen this brewery before. So I thought I'd try and get him one and see if it's any good.
I'm excited, I'll be honest. And Garion, you've got one that I found for you, which is an Irish-style stout, right? Oh, no.
Porter.
It's an Irish-style porter, Death by Coconut.
Ooh.
Coconut, chocolate, right on the top of the can. So I'm trying to find the IBUs. Alcohol, 6.5% ABV. Color is a 22, which I assume means somewhere right in the middle there.
It's pretty dark.
I assume all of these beers are pretty dark.
That's the hope. Anyway, honestly, I'm not a massive fan of coconut, but I do like chocolate stouts and chocolate porters, so I can only assume it's going to be pretty goddamn tasty.
So I'm reading this can right now, and there's a very clever thing at the top where it says pass-hit, which if you read it fast, it's pass the shit.
That's awesome, actually. I did not realize that when I bought the beer, because I saw it was like pass dash shit. What? I don't know. Whatever.
Pass the shit.
All right, the last one I have is the one from my top 5. This is Left Hand Brewing Company's Milk Stout on Nitro. It's America's Stout. It's 6% by volume and 25 IBUs. It's on Nitro, like I said. It is a very delicious, creamy, chocolatey stout. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't usually drink a lot of dark beers, but the Nitros, in my opinion, are my go-to because they're a lot easier to drink.
Dark beers are very heavy and filling.
So the one I've got here is Death by Coconut. It's actually by Oscar Blues Brewery. It's 6.5% ABV. And we couldn't find an exact IBU, but it's somewhere in the darker spectrum of color.
I would guess somewhere between like 20 and 30 IBUs.
Yeah. It's a coconut chocolate porter, so I can't imagine.
No, I've had one
bitter.
that was like 42 that was a chocolate stout. And
weird.
A little bit bitter, but the thing is,
maybe it hits
didn't
that because of
taste
the coffee notes and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, hard to say, but I'm excited to see how that one ends up.
Yeah, that's really good.
Let's get into it. Yeah, you hear that gurgle. So we've got the Tres Pistoles. I don't know.
It doesn't smell like a dark beer.
No, it really doesn't. Smells like it could be an aged ale. That's horribly descriptive.
It is a Belgian-style dark ale.
Yeah, it's
not a stout or a porter. Right?
Yeah, so I'm guessing it's an aged Belgian of some sort. Definitely got some funk to it. You can smell the sweetness to it. Light head considering the body. Whoa. It tastes very metallic, but in a good way.
Spicy?
This is weird.
Yeah.
And that's the triple pistoles?
Trois Pistoles.
I'm definitely getting the weird metal.
Yeah, it's like an aftertaste that kind of rides with you. It's like, I don't know, if you ever, like, I'm sure everyone's lost their teeth. Maybe you had one pulled out by force. Got that kind of irony, that heme kind of taste.
Yeah.
But it's not like a bad thing. It almost adds just like a sweetness to it.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe.
Yeah, that's another one of those beers. I don't know if we have the perfect words for it. It is kind of spicy, but not like Christmas spiced. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
kind of those.
Yeah.
It's not like
that's
gingerbread
pretty-
type spices. It's
yeah.
like,
It's pretty goddamn good though. I like that.
this is definitely more of a Garion beer.
Yeah, see, I would prefer those weird sorts of taste over hops any day of the week.
Yeah, there's like a very, very, very light bitterness to this. It's pleasant.
Yeah.
It's got an uneven flavor, which I like, that it's not just like uniform throughout. It's definitely added some interest to it. Like this one that I'll probably go back and try this again and again and have no idea what the exact flavors are.
Yeah,
Still have no words for it.
Yeah, I'm so confused. Like it's
Like,
good.
I didn't get a
so
metallic
weird.
flavor from it. I just got kind of an undertone. It's almost like, you know how you get that weird Dr. Pepper spiced flavor without any of the sweetness? None of that Dr. Pepper sweetness, but just those, I don't know,
the weird
non-Christmassy
combination of
spice.
ingredients.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the color of that, though. Was this re-fermented?
I think it was.
This is bottle re-fermented. So
Ooh. So it's got a little.
it's got some yeasty bits. to it
Extra
still.
funk.
Well done, Canada and Unibrow.
Yeah, they've got a couple other beers. I
And
think
that
that's
one's
their-
9%, right?
Yeah, I think that's their only dark one. I think they've got like a half or something. Maybe I'll try getting that.
All right, so the next one we've got is my beer, my favorite beer, one of my favorite.
Top 5 milk stout nitro, America's stout. I'm going in. God damn.
Yeah, it's so fucking good. Like it's like adult chocolate milk, but like in the
across
best way possible.
Yeah, across the room, I can see the head on that one's way darker.
Yeah, it's a lot more brown
Yeah.
and kind of a rich. I mean, if you know what a nitro head looks like, that's definitely.
And actually, if you hold up the Trois Pistolas to the light, it's just slightly translucent brown, so it's kind of a dark brown. That one over there is blacker than sin.
Oh, just smelling
It's
it
so
brings me
good.
back.
I forgot to even describe it. I just want to drink it.
Paradise.
You can describe it as delicious,
Yeah, it's really
Chocolatey.
smooth.
very kind of mocha-esque with just it's
Yeah.
it's light on the chocolate or the coffee. It's not like punching you in the face, but like if you took the best mocha you've ever had and then turned that into a beer and then made it smooth and creamy.
Yeah, it's a lot different than just having a chocolate and coffee beer. Mocha is like the perfect word for it because it's perfectly
Yeah.
blended. It's really smooth.
It's like if you
Incredible.
took the main components of what you taste on an iced coffee
Yeah.
and put it into a real good beer.
It's just like
Yeah,
a
that's
light
good.
bitterness to it again here.
Yeah.
It does have some sweetness to it that's not overpowering like some porters and stuff.
God damn, this Death by Coconut is almost red looking when it pours.
Now that is some head, dude.
I got a little more head than I probably should have.
That's a nice head though.
It's
like
really
very uneven
dark.
bubbles, nice
Yep.
rocky pebble or whatever the fuck they call it.
Rocky pebbled head. Good God.
So they describe it as death by coconut. Garion, do tell.
So, like I said when we started, I'm not a huge fan of coconut, and that is super goddamn coconutty, but in not a German chocolate kind of way. You know what I mean?
No, this is like
It tastes like, I know this is just a fucking sin to say, but it tastes like the Ocean Breeze Red Bulls, like the kind of coconutty Red Bulls. It's got like a really light,
don't drink
fresh coconut flavor.
Red Bulls, but it reminds me of if you took an almond joy and you roasted
Yes.
the coconuts
Yeah.
and then like cut a little bit of the chocolate out.
It's really good, actually, for a
Yeah,
guy
this
who
is
doesn't.
way good.
Yeah, that is.
I would
There's
guess
so
IBUs
much
are low.
coconut.
Yeah,
And that's
this is-
that's
They're not
like
fucking
20s.
around.
Yeah, that's low 20s. That's very good. That is super sweet
Yeah.
coconut, and it really is like a roasted coconut. Like that's
It's incredibly sweet.
yeah.
Probably one of the lighter, fresher tasting dark
beers like that. Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. Like I think that's probably the most like refreshing, but that's in
Yeah.
air quotes there.
Yeah.
Dark beer.
Usually, I feel like beers, they have an accent of whatever they're trying to flavor. Like
No,
an
this
accent
said
apricot or
calling
cherry.
this by coconut. This
only
is
coconut.
100%.
Yeah, this was a coconut.
Kicks
that
you in
had
the
some
teeth
beer on
with
it. Yeah.
coconut, but in a good way.
All right. Now that we're all gassed up, let's get into this. Let's start off first by having a quick disclaimer about the color black as a whole.
Right. As we did with white, we want to make sure that we don't promote any misconceptions about what black is.
I think it's easy with black cards to say demonic and devilish and, all these sort of...
Yeah,
And murder.
Red. Get that correct.
Murder, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of kind of...
It certainly is a dark theme,
yes.
but not evil.
Yeah. Like, black is not inherently bad or evil, right? Especially, like, if you consider yourself a black player. People don't think of themselves generally as bad or evil. They just think of themselves as, having their own ambitions and goals.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Do anything at any cost.
Right.
Yeah, I think players that, myself included, that identify really heavily with black, it's sort of identifying with being powerful and ruthless and getting to the point. Literally, the card "get to the point" is just so... I mean, it's a Rakdos card, but it's just so quintessential of kind of what
Rakdos
people... But what people who identify with black are trying to achieve. You know what I mean? People who gravitate towards black do so often because if I include black, I will have access to some of the greedier, more powerful cards, specifically because that's what black likes to do.
Right. Black is not evil. Black is just ruthless. Getting what it wants at any cost. And, like, that's just how black does things, right? It doesn't have such negative qualities that it can't be redeemed, right? Black does have its own redeeming qualities and figures, but sometimes they're just a little bit harder to see than it was in white or blue.
And it's their ambitions are sort of unrestricted by a specific moral compass or religious belief. It's just power for the sake of power.
Right. And so, as Garion was talking about there, Mark Rosewater has his quote that we keep going back to. And for black, it was black seeks power through ruthlessness. So that is what you're going to see a lot for this episode. So the three main things that we're going to see with black is we have our ambition, and then this kind of parasitism, decay, sickness, infection kind of theme, and then manipulation. And these are kind of going to run through each other very well because that's what Wizards does. They've told a great story here.
So the first primary drive that black has is its ambition. It's all out going for the best, going for power, going for first, always gearing for the win, no matter what the cost.
Yeah. Like, black doesn't care who you are, where you came from. You're either a person who can be used to help them get what they want, or you're in the way and need to go. Right? Black is going to use you and throw you aside, or use you to continue their drive up and then throw you aside later.
Yeah, you're just a stepping stone in the end game.
Yeah. They don't let anything stand in the way of personal success, right? They're going to kill, they're going to destroy anything that stands in their way. And you see that in cards like Murder, Doomblade Cast Down, Eviscerate, Fatal Push. These are cards that are very efficient at destroying creatures, getting rid of
just
obstacles.
straightforward removal. No
And it's
nonsense.
been that way since the beginning of Magic. Black
Yeah.
has always fit into that category.
Usually, like, unconditional removal, like Murder, those cards, they're going to be very strong always, but they're set to get rid of the people in Magic, right? The creatures.
So black and the black player sort of always value themselves above the rest. And so the characters within black seem to be the same way.
You see that with Liliana's storyline. She just kind of
Liliana
people.
is like epitome of black.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to progress towards their own goals, and to do that, they're going to exploit. So exploit is a mechanic that was in the Tarkir block, and Sidisi Undead Vizier was a very good, like, prime example of exploiting, right? It allows you,
the best exploit card.
yeah, it allows you to tutor after exploiting, and exploiting allows you to sacrifice a creature to gain a benefit.
Yeah, it's like being a planeswalker and bringing in a very powerful creature under your control, specifically because they have the ability to go get some other shit you needed. And you're like, you know what? If you disappear, don't care. I needed something else.
Yeah, and then an interesting thing with exploit is you can actually exploit the creature that has exploit. So you can use itself for the greater good, and
That's
just
green.
with that in
Greater
mind.
good is green.
Okay, not greater good.
All right, so Gary, when you were looking at this episode, you kind of had black as a very greedy color, and I don't disagree, but I don't think it's one of the main tenets, but it certainly fits into our category of ambition very well.
Yeah, I think the reason I kind of had originally in our outline lined it up as a main tenet is because it happens a lot in the mechanics of Black, but I do understand how that's not necessarily, Black doesn't think of itself as like, I need the most, I'm the greediest. It just, no matter what, it will get to its goal. Oh, yeah, Black if it has to use greedy mechanics where it's...
Yeah, where you pay life for creatures.
Black is certainly greedy, right? Black wants it all. He wants wealth, status, and above all else, it wants power. Right? And so it's willing to kind of trade these things that most of us kind of hold closer to ourselves than what Black does, right? It's going to trade life for resources and information. We see that to get mana and card draw, we're going to be trading life for that, right? We've got Phyrexian Arena, Grizzlebrand, Necropotence, Dark Confidant,
Bolas's Citadel, one of the newer ones. Out. Extremely powerful.
And to get mana, we've got Blood Celebrant and Vesper Ghoul.
Yep.
Black also just kind of doesn't care who they work with, right? They'll trade their soul to get what they want, right? We see these tutors. We've got Demonic Tutor, Demonic Consultation, Vampiric Tutor. Sell your lifeblood to get what you want.
Yeah, it's a small price to pay to get the power that you need, the things that you want in order to win.
Yeah, consequences be damned. We'll deal with it later. Right now, I have my goal in mind, and I'm going to achieve it no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, at least for me, people who gravitate towards Black realize why it's so powerful, because one of the first things you learn when you try to level up in Magic is that your life points are not some arbitrary bar that you need to set. They are a resource that you can use to win a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Life is a resource, especially in Black. And I have a thing that I normally say, which is the only point of your life total that matters is the last one. But there are actually some cases in Black that's not even true, right? You've got Lich cards that play around the fact that having no life actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's okay. So to technically be dead.
Yeah, Black's allowed to break the rule that's the only life point that matters, which is really cool. And it's really kind of epitomizes what Black just doesn't actually care about its own life total. Like, it can throw that away and still be winning because of it.
Yeah, it's always trying to get value, even when you're at 0.
Yeah, if you guys have ever watched Loading Ready Run, they do a lot of those Canadian Highlander matches on YouTube. I would check them out. But they have a really fucking good dredge deck that, I mean, almost every match he's down to 3, 2, 1 life, and he still wins really consistently because he just lets you throw everything at him because he knows once he gets to his power cards, he's going to win.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing with Canadian Highlanders, that your last life point is just kind of like the only thing that you actually care about in a lot of situations, whether you're trying to storm off or anything like that. Yeah. Like, as long as you're not dead, you still can win.
Yeah, that's that Doomsday deck that I can't remember the guy's name, but he just storms in one turn. It's like
Jeremy
if it's
White.
Turn 4, you be
Jeremy White
careful.
and Whaler both, I think, to it. But those guys are fun to watch. That's definitely a good showing of Magic.
Yeah, well, and a perfect example of Black being, I'll use my life till the very last one. As long as I win this game, it didn't matter.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot more abusable in EDH since you have 40 life. Yeah. You can just pay so much more, get so much more value off of it.
Yeah, Black is willing to sacrifice anything for its personal benefit. You've got things like Altars, Reap, and Launch Party, sacrificing creatures to whether it's draw cards, destroy creatures, something along those lines. And along that theme, you have the Aristocrat strategy, and really that kind of benefits around having sacrifice outlets and payoffs for it. And so you see Vampire Aristocrat, Viscera Seer, those are kind of like staples of your sac outlets for free sacrifice to get benefits. And then, of course, we have Blood Artist as one of your biggest and most well-known payoffs.
The classic Aristocrat. And Aristocrats as a strategy, it's usually Mardu, but Black is the base of it because of all of these effects.
Yeah, you got things like Dictate of Erebos that kind of fits in that category where it's a payoff to lose your creatures.
Yeah.
Even though it shouldn't be, it helps you progress your game state.
Right. And another part of this ambition, we have the gods, right? We've got Erebos, God of the Dead, and Bantu the Glorified. And they also care a lot about just being kind of greedy and ambitious to get your goals.
Yeah, they don't even care about themselves dying.
So the next category that we decided to sort of lump into Black as a whole and their motives is this parasitism, decay, sickness, and infection. We kind of have that all as one category because Black does this very well where they use others, whether it's other creatures or other players, parasitically to gain for themselves.
Right. You've got this kind of like vampirism and life drain type things, right? Lifelink, Siphon Soul, Child of Night, Whip of Erebos, things that allow you to gain life that you spent on other things and get that life back through damage.
Yeah, I had a note on here that black generally doesn't have just standard life gain. You don't just have play a card, gain 5 life. You sort of have to either sacrifice your own creatures or be a parasite upon, you have to deal damage to a player or to another creature in order to gain that life through lifelink. And
I think a good example of this is the extort mechanic, where you just pay 1 extra mana, everyone loses a life, and you gain life, and it's just incremental just damage and values, like that parasite theme.
All you do is you play cards, extort.
Yeah.
You get the benefit
You
from
play
it.
the game, you sort of leech off everything.
which then allows you to have a greater life total to then utilize to your advantage.
Right. Another kind of gray area here is the Golgari-esque kind of decay stuff. You see it more in green than black, but it's still very prominent in black. You've got like just the scavenge mechanic. Xanakiv, Locust is a good example there. Then you've got decaying soil, fungal infection, things like that, where the theme of this kind of decay and regrowth mechanics are prominent, not necessarily in the actual mechanics themselves, but in what the cards are trying to purvey.
Agreed. There's also kind of an underlying theme that from the very beginning of Magic has followed black, and that's sickness and illness and plague, which is where we get cards like Plague Wind, Plague Rats, Pox.
Pox.
Fucked up card.
It is a fucked up card, but it's still, I don't know. If I ever have a deck where I just like really want to turn people inside out, like just playing that card, it's kind of like a very lighthearted Jocklehops almost.
Yeah, I think Pox is actually a really good example of what black does, because it affects everybody.
Yes. Yeah, you're willing to sacrifice a third of your shit to make sure that everybody else's board state is taken down as well. I think Plague Rats, I think that's a really good card for sort of the lore behind black, because it says for each rat in play. And so it's kind of, like the old military strategies of introducing disease to your enemies. And, the more rats you have out, the more that the disease and damage can spread.
Well, I think it's very telling that these are plague rats specifically.
Yeah.
Like you look at bubonic plague, especially like Roman times, and even like the infections afterwards. The rats are like the carriers of the disease, the major spread, and they just populate like mad, and they cause the population to die because of it. And that's like a very underhanded thing for a player to do in a sense, but at the same time, it's like such a strong way to win, because it's very obvious of what's going on, but you have to be able to address it correctly.
Yeah, it's just, it feeds on itself and gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and it's very thematic to the amoral, not evil, but just the idea of I will do whatever it takes to win. You know what I mean?
Certainly. You also have just like Death Touch, and in fact, it's kind of these poison venom type ideas. Death Touch, you have just the classic Vampire Nighthawk. Everybody knows that card.
Yep.
Typhoid Rats, Ophiomancer, one of my personal favorites. And then with Infect, of course, we got Skitherix.
I'm probably the only anti-infect player in our group. And
I'm probably the most pro-Infect.
Yeah.
I love Infect.
I don't think any of us are really infect players, but I think everyone but you, Garion, are okay with it.
What was that?
Everyone but you are okay with it.
And well, if someone else plays Infect, I'm not gonna be like, I will never play with you. But I feel like such a weird, underhanded way to win that I just don't include it in any of my.
It is like a sneaky alternative.
Yeah, so with Infect, of course, we got Skitherix, the Blight Dragon. It's a classic. It's also an expensive card. Trust me, I've tried to buy it like 5 times. Every time it goes up, I should have just bought one like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think the fan name is Skittles.
Skittles, yeah. Because Skittles is like an approachable, dragon. Like, it's my buddy Skittles, not Skitherix, the Blight Dragon.
Yeah, asshole.
He's a nice guy.
So the last main thing we have for black is manipulation. And this is a pretty broad category that we sort of touched on, because it sort of wedges its way into everything that black wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, black is a nice weave of mechanics, and manipulation is just all throughout.
Yeah, and so we're talking about like the manipulation of life and death. So this is how we mentioned paying life to do stuff, or paying or sacrificing creatures and stuff like this.
But it also goes into like forcing your opponents to sacrifice creatures, right? We've got Diabolic Edict, Fleshback Marauder, Dictative Erebos, as Gary had mentioned before.
Shieldred,
Attrition. There's a lot of mechanics, a lot of cards that force your opponents to sacrifice.
Yeah,
creatures.
sacrifice is a very strong mechanic, because it's hard to fight it.
Yeah, it's hard to get around it, and it's just kind of like, you can counter my spell, but you can't necessarily stop yourself from sacrificing a creature, because I'm like forcing you to do it.
Yeah,
yeah, it circumvents hexproof and shroud and all
and
these
indestructible.
Yeah. because you're basically making them choose to get rid of their own creature.
Protection.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ways that sacrifice is almost broken in that sense.
Which is why Shieldred, even though she's my favorite, is immediately killed the second she puts on.
Oh, yeah.
Death.
Yeah.
Black also just cares about things dying. Black is one of the major proponents of the morbid mechanic, which is just whenever a creature has died, the card that you're playing or the card that's on the battlefield has an extra effect. So you've got things like Skurzdak High Priest, which is one of the ones that I think I've used the most. You can just make a demon after shit's died. You've got Tragic Slip, which is a very well-known one. Gets around a lot of annoying creatures because it's a minus instead of just destroy. So don't care about indestructible or anything like that. And then you've got things like Kalidas, Trader of Get, where it cares about things dying and it stops your opponent from benefiting from those death triggers by actually exiling them instead. Very strong card.
Yep. Another way we find that black manipulates sort of its board state and its minions and its creatures is through necromancy. So after you've gone through and sacrificed your creatures or milled them or dredged them, all these different ways that you basically are killing your soldiers, you're willing to go down to the depths of that, that spell bringing to go into necromancy and bring things back. So you've got like the classic cards, Reanimate and Animate Dead.
We've got like kind of newer cards because Reanimate and Animate Dead are very powerful and very low mana costed, so they had to increase the mana cost to make them less good, just because it's so strong. You've got Rise from the Grave and Zombify for that, and then of course we got Sheldred again. She's on here because
classic.
She's just very good at what she does. And then we've got things that are a kind of more wide range, like Rise of the Dark Realms, Recurring Nightmare.
Yeah, I think Reanimator decks are one of the strongest black deck types because of these cards, because you get so much value off bringing things back and back and back.
Yeah, if your thing is good enough to have it on the board and then it dies or you sacrifice it, why not do those things again? Bring it back, use it again, sacrifice it again, get all of the bonus values off of it as many times as you can.
Especially in our singleton formats where you can only have a copy. So another sort of portion of that necromancy is being able to control dead creatures. So you have like Zombie Master, Ghoulcaller Gissa, Vindictive Lich, and Josu Ves Lich Knight.
Yeah, so these are all cards that, while not necessarily like controlling the dead, they're very thematic in sense, especially like their names, like Zombie Master, you're controlling the dead. Like, like you can't be more on the forehead with that shit.
Yeah, they like reanimating things and making tokens, especially zombie tokens. There's a couple other big cards that make zombie tokens, like Grave Titan, Army of the Damned, some big ones.
So beyond just creatures and effects like that, we also like to affect your opponent's boards and their resources. Specifically, we like to restrict your opponent's options. We're talking about discard effects here. You want to, as the card suggests, you're going to attack your opponent's mind to force them to take actions that they don't want. So we've got things like Thoughtseize, Hypnotorac, Oppression, Mind Rot is kind of like the more heavily printed one nowadays.
Yeah, these are things kind of like sacrifice. They're hard to combat because you don't expect people to take cards right out of your hand and taking all your answers right before you can even use them.
Yeah, it's a good kind of defensive. Like best defense is good offense. And
yeah,
stop your opponents from being able to play the game, especially if they have specific cards that counter your options. Like, get rid of them.
Yeah, it's a very proactive way of removing.
So black also really cares about when they discard stuff, right? We've got One with Nothing, which is just a classic, quote-unquote, bad card. There's ways to make it good.
Combo piece.
Got From Under the Floorboards, Volder and Pariah. These are all, the last two are personal favorites of mine because I love the madness mechanics. Let me discard stuff so I can pay a cheaper cost for them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, black sometimes can benefit from no cards in hand. We've got the Hellbent mechanic from Ravnica, and then we've got kind of janky cards like Howltooth Hollow, where everyone needs to have no cards in hand in order for you to use its effect. But you really just want to control what your opponents are able to do.
Yeah, even if that costs you cards from your hand too.
Yeah, and as we go through this, we have another subset called Manipulation of the Masses, which I think at first I didn't really understand why we would include it when I first saw it on our outline, because you think of white as being sort of the religious color and having
like
their
holiness.
following. Yeah, but I think it fits thematically with the lore of, you're willing to go to any lengths, even if it is cultish behavior or, kind of quote unquote infecting or washing the minds of the people in order to get them to do what you need them to do. So you have cards like Twilight Prophet, Shadowborn Apostle, Blind Zealot, Cabal Conditioning.
And then, of course, just the classic, you've got the rituals, right? Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Ritual of the Returned. There's a reason why cards that generate mana at that speed are called ritual effects. It is because of Dark Ritual and its later versions.
So I actually already finished the cocoa chocolate.
With some help.
Yeah, I did have a little help, but it was really good, really refreshing for a dark beer. Usually they sit really heavy in the mouth and in your belly, and this did neither.
Yeah, it was very tropical.
Yeah, it was super easy to drink. Lots and lots of flavor.
Yeah, if they're going to call it Death by Coconut,
May as well.
It's a very fitting name, yeah.
all of the coconut. And it was not just like your generic ass coconut. Like it was a nice kind of roasted coconut taste. Very, very nice. I think for me it was a little overpoweringly sweet. It was very, very sweet, but still good. But I would only be able to have one of those.
Yeah, it's way too sweet to have a 6-pack of those or something.
Corey, you on the other hand, I can imagine having as many of those as I could possibly get in my belly.
I've been savoring this. Usually I'm the first one done, but I've just been sipping this because it's so good.
I'm proud of Corey because usually he just crushes beers because he just, I don't know. One, he talks less than I feel like I do especially, but he just is able to consume beers like no one else, and he's, I don't know, probably like only 3/4 of the way out of that one.
Yeah, I've just taken my time on this nitro.
Enjoying it, which you should.
Yeah, I definitely see why it's top 5.
Like it's so good. I love that beer. It like if I find it anywhere, I usually just pick it up because I know I'm going to enjoy it every single time.
Yeah, I think if I ever had to get a dark beer again, this is the one that I would get.
Yeah.
Because it's so good.
Single most descriptive word is smooth.
Yes.
Really easy to drink.
And for me, I got this Trois Pistoles.
3 guns.
It's a Idaho 3 guns from Canada.
Need more.
It's a very interesting brew. It's slightly funky and has this kind of spicy metallic taste. It's got a sweetness to it that I don't hate. It's just not like cloyingly sweet. It's just kind of...
It's very subtle.
Nice little bitterness to it at the end. The aroma is more funky than what I would expect it to be, but it's still a very pleasant beer.
Yeah, I don't think I've had a dark ale before, so I didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah, dark ales,
I think funky's a good word.
Generally less funky than this. This is just a Belgian style ale, so you kind of expect that funkiness to it a little bit more. But I'm kind of impressed with it just because a lot of Belgian style ales put me off because they're a little bit too far gone, in my opinion. That's just kind of how they taste. But this because a re-fermented in the bottle, so it does have this kind of yeastiness to it that I didn't really notice until after a couple sips. And then I literally had to ask like if it was re-fermented, and turns out
it was.
All right, so we've gone through all of these ideas that Black does and some other cards to it, but we should talk about the actual game mechanics a little more.
The nitty-gritty.
So, of course, we've got creatures and creature types. Black is well known for many, many creature types. But
it shares a lot of creature types with other colors, but some very specific black creature types.
Yeah, we've got like bats, horrors, nightmares, rats, scorpions, skeletons, of course, zombies. We've got demons, gorgons, shades, specters, and then some that are kind of more comboed with other colors. Yeah. You know, we've got clerics, thralls, vampires, which, you know, more recently in red and then white before them.
We've even got a couple blue vampires.
Yeah, true. As for mechanics, well, there's loads, but we've kind of narrowed it down to like the major ones.
Yeah, the ones that symbolize black the most, or
so we've got
utilize them.
One of the old school mechanics here. We've got fear.
I don't even know what to say about fear. They
better intimidate.
Yeah, they changed it, or they brought intimidate from fear and basically just gave it to all other colors. But fear is basically you can't block this creature unless you're colorless
or black.
Yeah.
And so as an example, we've got like Avatar of Woe and Cover of Darkness. Then there's this kind of theme of sacrifice, which we talked about over and over again.
Yeah.
Reanimation, of course, reanimate, zombify, necromancy, etc. We have these kind of mind attacks, these hand attacks, just lobotomize your opponents, right? Extirpate, stain the mind, surgical extraction. We've got efficient removal, right? Just try and kill these creatures. We've got murder, consign to the pit. Force your opponents to sacrifice stuff. With, again, Sheoldred, she's going to be here over and over again. Butcher of Malakir. Very, very efficient tutors with Demonic Tutor. Even some creature-based ones like Sidisi, Undead Vizier.
Yeah, I would say black is probably most known for their tutors because it's the color that has the least stipulations in most cases for their tutors.
Yeah, they have the best straightforward tutors.
Just a card.
Just
go get
cheap,
it.
go.
Yep. Also, another mechanic is Death Touch, like you were saying, shows up a lot in black, following that sort of disease and infect
Yeah,
kind
just
of theme.
little things that can take out
Yeah,
anything.
I'm a rat, but you are now dead because you got sick.
Black is one of the most well-rounded colors.
Yeah.
We can all agree to that.
Yeah, I think when people say it's the best color or the strongest color, it's not necessarily because it has some, big bomb. It's because it can do so many different things so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess probably recently black has been looked at as the best color because before, I think nobody would look the other way if you said it was blue. Starting around Innistrad block is when I started to notice where black has really started to pick up versus blue specifically. It's really started to gain ground.
Yeah.
And recently black is definitely, especially since I'm primarily a drafter. And
Yeah.
so black is just going to always be strong just because it does have that efficient removal, ways to hand tag your opponents. If I'm playing more of a mid-range or control strategy, like black has just got it all.
Yeah,
It's not completely devoid of evasion.
they just get more and more answers
Yeah.
over time.
Another mechanic that black does really well, especially lately, is card draw. And I think that's probably why blue was so strong in the past, because
Agreed,
blue had most of the really efficient card draw. But especially in more recent years, black has become pretty strong in card draw as well. There are some caveats for how black gets its card draw. Like we talked about before, we're using our resources. So there's a lot of cards like Phyrexian Arena, Harrowing Journey, where we're trading our life for cards. But again, we realize, especially in Commander, that's not as big a deal as the card you need in the hand.
Right. And there's other examples where we're trading our creature's life
Yeah,
for cards.
it's almost always worth it. Small cost to pay to get just such powerful card draw effects.
Yeah.
And then there's these rare occurrences where we have this exile effect for cards, like Headstone, which allows you to exile a card from your graveyard in order to draw a card.
Yeah, I like how thematic that ties in to get your cards. It's, who cares about our dead? Who cares about our servants? We need the
we don't-
card world.
Yeah.
Exactly. We don't
Yeah.
treasure our dead as what other colors might.
Yep.
Instead, we're going to just turn them into more resources.
Yeah,
We're a
that's
body
another
that's
tool.
useful. Yep.
Another thing the black is really, really good with is removal, and especially creature removal. And a lot of the old cards,
Had the stipulation that it had to be a non-black.
yeah, which most of the time it doesn't matter, but every once in a while it does.
Like Doomblade is kind of like our classic example. It's destroy target non-black creature.
Yeah.
And that sort of card was printed for several years, I feel, before they kind of decided, well, let's just make it more expensive, but lower the stipulation costs.
Yeah, and it's just destroying any creature is already really powerful, so they had to sort of give it a limitation of non-black.
And even in most cases, that's still really strong, but
Yeah.
you can run into instances where it's not what you need.
Yeah, black, on the other hand, is not as great at getting rid of non-creature permanents. Black
Yeah.
is kind of the weakest in that sense. It's very difficult to get rid of artifacts and enchantments, especially. But they do have ways around it, like Phyrexian Tribute, which allows you to sacrifice creatures in order to destroy an artifact. Something like that in a mono-black deck is like maybe your only answer that's a colored answer rather than just using colorless artifacts.
Yeah.
And of course, black is the second best, I would say, behind white at just having fantastic board wipes. Some of the most well-known and kind of praised board wipes just because of the effectiveness and their wide-sweeping nature.
Yeah, I agree.
I think also cost efficiency too, because you see some of those things in other colors, but instead of 4 mana, it's 8 mana or 7.
Like 5 seems to be where Wizards has settled on recently as far as whiteboard wipes go, but it's very difficult to beat, OG Wrath of God, but then you have for black, its counterpart Damnation, and one of the best board wipes, especially at its rate, you've got Toxic Deluge for 3 mana. Again, you're paying life, and it also gets around all these other annoying things like Shroud, Hexproof, and most importantly, Indestructible.
Yeah, I would argue that
Yeah.
Toxic Deluge is one of, if not the best blackboard wipe. It's because you just pay life instead of mana.
You don't have to have a card. You don't have to have creatures on board. You have the resource that you start with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially when you're playing against, white decks that are token decks and things like that, you don't necessarily have to pay all that much life to get a pretty big change in a board state.
Yeah, and then of course there's Black Sun Zenith, which the Zenith cards is something that we're going to mention basically every single one of these episodes that we're talking about colors because they do what the color does very well, right? Putting counters on these -1/-1 counters is a very, very, very strong effect because even if you don't kill the creature, then
It weakens it.
It weakens it.
And
For
it
later.
stays there, yeah.
So one thing that black is surprisingly decent at is token generation. You've got things like Endrixar, Master Breeder, Army of the Damned, and what we find is that a lot of the tokens that black is going to generate are going to be these zombie tokens. And Cory kind of mentioned that before. We've got like Grave Titan and stuff like that.
We touched on them.
But normally I feel that black is probably not going to be your go-to token generator. But when it's paired with something else, like it's kind of surprising how well it can be.
Yeah, it usually the big tokens that it makes, like Drew said, are zombies and then occasional vampire tokens. But usually zombies, it makes a lot of zombies.
Yeah, sometimes rats and bats.
Yeah,
come
just
into
little critters.
Yeah. So we touched on this before about the ways in which black can attain life gain. They do it surprisingly well, but again, it's not just...
I gain life.
Yeah, it's not just play a card, gain life.
Which are generally bad cards anyways.
Yeah.
The way in which they do it generally is through lifelink, which happens through a lot of vampire mechanics, cards like Vampiric Link, and then cards like Whip of Erebos, where it just gives all your creatures lifelink, which is basically like a life drain.
Yeah, so the idea is that, again, black wants to be punishing its opponents, but then it's also going to reap some benefit off of it. Black has this very interesting mechanic to me of just grave hate. It's not like a specific, well-written mechanic in black. Things like Bajuka Bog, Agent of Erebos, these targeted graveyard hatred spells and lands that force your opponents to...
I think the reason that black has the grave hate is more thematic towards the lore than it is for color mechanics gameplay, just because black from the lore is the most likely color to have power over the grave. But yeah, I think mechanic-wise, it doesn't make as much sense because it's the one color that actually needs graveyards to be around.
They use the graveyard so much, and so I guess
Well, idealistically, I was trying to think...
taking that value from other people.
Yeah, exactly. Is that they want to use the graveyard. Therefore, your graveyard must be valuable to you. And so you're kind of taking that value away from your opponent.
Proactively reducing that.
So that's kind of the major themes of black. And with every single one of these episodes, we'll kind of come to a close here with that which encapsulates it all. And for us, those are going to be the Planeswalkers. These are things that Wizards has found to represent the colors in their entirety, right? So for us, we've got Liliana Vess and Liliana of the Veil, right? Liliana of the Veil is one of the most, if not the most powerful Planeswalker in black. She's insane. She's just, I mean, you can tell that by her price point. Even when they reprint her, she stays about the same.
Yep.
Sometimes she goes up.
Yep.
We've got Ob Nixilis Reignited and Soren Markov.
Fucking Soren Markov.
It's a classic. He's a beater, man. That guy's not messing around.
Yeah, and so a lot of the mechanics we've talked about are just abilities, just straight up on these cards.
Yeah, Liliana Vess has a tutor effect.
Yeah, you strong tutors. I make you discard cards. I make you sacrifice creatures.
I just reduce your
Creates
life
tokens,
Yeah,
tokens.
Yeah, we've got.
I deal damage to you, and then I gain some life.
Yep. Soren, deal 2 damage and gain 2 life. Target opponent's life total becomes 10. You're just leeching off of bitches. But the last one I actually think is pretty thematic too. It says you control target player during that player's next turn, which is very parasitic.
And it just manipulates them. Like,
Manipulation. Yeah.
if they have like sack allies or something like that, I sack your whole board for no value. I attack you with your best creatures into my death touch creature, something along those lines.
Or swing into your other opponents when they wouldn't.
In Commander or some other multiplayer format, sure.
Yeah, it's just the most manipulative thing you could really ever do in Magic.
To control another player. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a low blow.
So I think those Planeswalkers do a really good job of encapsulating all of sort of the main themes and mechanics that Black tries to utilize as tools to gain that power and win the game.
Right. I think Wizards has written Planeswalkers very well over the years in that they want to use them as like a guidepost almost of this is what this color does, especially with these monocolored ones. It's like this is what this color does. And even with the multicolored ones, this is what this color pair is going to do, and what the theme of, I don't know, using Soren as an example of just vampires. When he is black-white, he does have a lot of like lifelink type mechanics, a lot of kind of parasitism, and just kind of like efficient life matters sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting maybe at the end of each of these episodes this Mark Rosewater quote, just because it really does harken back to some of the very origins of how Wizards is actually making these cards and building the lore in, building the mechanics into the colors. So
we
I'm gonna
show with it. We might as well close with it.
I'm gonna have Drew strap
too
on his
good.
best announcer voice and give us this Mark Water quote.
I don't think we should do it the announcer voice. I think I should just read it. So white seeks peace through structure, blue seeks perfection through knowledge, black seeks power through ruthlessness, red seeks freedom through action, and green seeks acceptance through growth. And that's from Mark Rosewater, his blog talk. That was in 2014. But I think that these kind of tenets hold true.
Yeah, you can, just going back to old Magic, you can see that all of these points, they've stuck to them over the years and just built and built and built on all of them.
Yep.
Well, that'll do it for black. We'll see you next time where we're talking about red.
Corey's
Hey,
Yeah, Cory's leading this one, so we'll see what happens.
chaos.
Whew. So thanks for visiting us, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. You can talk to us over there on Twitter at UUD Podcast. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. Hopefully you're watching this on YouTube at least once during the episode.
Yeah, if you're going to do anything, I would suggest looking at it on YouTube because we're going to have some of the cards that we've mentioned. Actually, we're going to have all of the cards that we've mentioned, just so you know what they do. You're going to have to pause the video most likely and go
Yeah,
through.
there's a lot of them.
Because we've gone through a lot of cards and we haven't really explained them. And this isn't the podcast for that. We'll do that in a different episode where we're actually talking about very specific cards for specific reasons.
So we'll see you guys next time. And as always,
Have fun.
But not too much.